Welcome to another edition of the Power Connector podcast. I'm your host, Derek Dickow, here today to have another curiosity conversation with someone I respect in business and someone I went to school with maybe 20 years ago at Oakland University. Amer Batal, principal of Batal Real Estate, has really taken a very unique path over the last 20 years in his career. And just want to catch up with you today, Amer, and hear your story and really just say hi. It's been 20 years since we graduated from Oakland University, and what an interesting journey you've been on as from an electrical engineer, entrepreneur, and now the next chapter is in commercial real estate. And oh, by the way, you've been on the stage many times in your health and wellness journey. So very interested to hear a little bit more about your story and have what I like to call a curiosity conversation where I just kind of share a little bit more about what you're focused on in the hopes that we can share that message and inspire others along the way. So welcome. Good to see you, brother.
Good morning, Derek. Happy to be here. As you mentioned, we go way back to 2003 when we graduated around the same time from Oakland University. And we both have taken a very interesting paths with our career. Our backgrounds do not reflect what we do today.
Not at all.
But that's what we're here to talk about, and glad to be here.
Thank you. So I start these conversations with what I think is the most universal and important question is, what's new and exciting in your world?
There's a lot of new and exciting things in my world. I am currently really focused on my commercial real estate business and adding a few new pieces of real estate to our portfolio. And that's what I'm doing on the commercial real estate side. And as far as the other vertical that I work on, which is family entertainment, I currently have another family entertainment park. It's an urban air adventure park location in Commerce Township, and it is currently under construction. It's set to be open sometime of August of this year. And in addition to what I'm doing in my career, also on the personal side, which is something that I have a big passion of, although you mentioned that I've been on stage many times, but this year I am doing a virtual competition for a magazine by the name of Mr. Muscle and Fitness 2023. And it is a virtual competition where my network can vote for me, and hopefully they will continue to support me and vote for me to get first position in this particular competition. And my plan is to donate 100% of the prize money if I win towards charity, specifically in the mental and in the physical health.
That's a terrific, well-balanced life that you built for yourself. Share with me a little bit about the transition from your interest in being an electrical engineer at a young age into the position that you're in today. So they don't correlate at all. So how do you go from being an electrical engineer into an entrepreneur?
So I come from a family of academia. We have a very, very specific path that my cousins, my uncles, my father has taken. And growing up in that household, you would assume that this is the right path that you need to take, is to go to school, get a bachelor degree, move on maybe into a master's or a PhD, and then get into the world and start your career. Well, when I graduated in 2003, I graduated in an unfavorable market for engineers. So I was interviewing constantly, and I just could not find a job. And one of the reasons why I could not find a job is because when I was in college, I was more focused on instant money type work, just so I could support my personal expenses. Anything from waiting tables to bartending to valeting to working at the mall and retail. So I didn't really build an internship program or a co-op program that will make my resume as attractive as some of the other engineers that I was graduating from. So when you look at my resume, you look at all these different jobs that are not very engineering related. So the competition with some of the engineers that graduated around the same time as I did was very fierce, and I was just not able to compete with them because I just did not have the right resume to be able to show to employers. As a result of that, I was in the job market for months and I could not find a job, and I decided to go and get my first business instead. And this is how my entrepreneurial route began. It was really as a result of not being able to find a job as an engineer.
So creativity led to your path, and how did you arrive at your first business? I mean, you just you find a problem, you look to solve it, or what was your mindset at that time?
At that time, I was very young to be able to look for a problem and solve it. I was just going with the flow. I had a friend of mine who owned a cell phone store under a brand called Wireless Giant, and you and I share that type of
Mm-hmm.
experience together as well. I know that you were involved in Nextel at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did is I just got a family loan for $32,000, and I bought a third of a Wireless Giant store, and that was at the beginning of 2004. So it was just the only opportunity that I had in front of me, and I went ahead and took that opportunity, and I tried to make the best out of it.
So from electrical engineering to the cell phone business, a partner there, building your own path, and then how did that evolve into the family entertainment business that you're in?
There was a little bit of a chapter in between, and I'm going to talk about that. In 2004 through 2008, I owned, starting out, I owned a third of that cell phone store. I ended up owning 100% of it by buying my partners out over the years. However, in 2008, we had a major recession, as you know, and most of my business at that time was business to business, B2B. I didn't do a lot of walk-in business in my store because of where my location was. My location was in Troy, in the corporate side of Troy. So a lot of the companies that were around would come and they would activate 50 lines or 100 lines at the time. And that was my niche. That was my core business. As we hit 2008 recession, a lot of that business dried out. So I was left without any walk-in customers to be able to support my business. One customer, however, walked in. She was in the logistics industry. She came in to get some cell phones for her drivers, and through my due diligence and asking about what she does for work so I can provide the right solution for her, I soon understood her line of work. And I said to myself, I'm in a position where I need to supplement my income. So why don't I get the contact information of the people that she works with in that industry, learn more about that industry, and get involved in that industry to supplement my income? So that's what I did. I got that information. She was a contractor for a transportation company out of Ohio. I went down to Ohio. I spoke to one of the recruiters to understand how I can get started in that industry. And
Hold on for a second. You just knocked on their door and said, "I'm here to learn."
that's exactly what happened. I called ahead. I said I'm going to be coming down over the next 24 hours. I'd like to learn more about transportation, and I would like to be connected with a recruiter. I was connected with a recruiter. In 24 hours, I drove my car over to Ohio. It was in a little town called Seville, right outside of Akron, Ohio. The name of the company was Panther Premium Logistics. Sat with the recruiter, understood what I need to do to get started with them as a contractor, and I pulled the trigger and I started a transportation and logistics business in 2008. It was in August when I incorporated the company.
And how long did that take? What, just a couple weeks?
It was going to meet with the recruiters, and then after I met with the recruiters, I had to go buy a few trucks. I bought my trucks from a blend of a family loan and a small bank that was willing to lend me some money at credit card interest rate at the time. But I made do because that was only my option to be able to pivot from my cell phone store to another business so I could support myself and support my needs. I ended up with 3 trucks. They were very used trucks. Each of them had about 500,000 miles on them. I didn't really know what I was getting into. I didn't know that used trucks are not favorable to drivers that are out there that want to be in a commercial vehicle over the road. But I somehow was able to make it work. I bought those 3 trucks, took them down to Panther Premium Logistics, and I started recruiting drivers. My job was mainly to recruit drivers and to buy equipment, while Panther, which is the transportation company, was providing me with work.
So how are you able to build relationships with these people that you didn't know, and you didn't really have much information on the industry in general? So in terms of building relationships with people, were you able to go about that?
Mainly, I was working at my office from home. I was on the phone all day. The schedule was very specific. I would wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. At 7 a.m., I am in front of my desk. All I'm doing all day is calling drivers and recruiting drivers and speaking to Panther to be able to provide them with work. So I was the liaison between the drivers and the transportation company. And as my driver needs has increased, as I was buying more equipment, I had to recruit more drivers. My shift started at 7 o'clock, ended at 10 p.m., and then I would be on call at 10 p.m. in the event that one of my drivers break down. I had to be available for them to be able to help them out and get them whatever they need, whether it's a spare tire or a spare battery or any issues that they ran into on the road, because we are in a 24/7 business. So you had to be available, and I had no employees. I was a one-man show. I wore all hats. I wore the dispatcher hat, the driver recruiter hat, the driver manager, the maintenance manager, the accountant, etc. And I did that for 2 years before I was able to hire my first employee.
So 15 hours a day for 2 consecutive years, wearing every single hat in the business because you were the sole uh, employee and operator of your own business until one day you decided, I need some help.
I needed some help, and I think in a few years after being in the business, I really understood what the secret recipe is to be able to scale that business. The very first component to be able to scale that business was really transitioning from buying old equipment to new equipment, because old equipment was just not doing it. I mean, after year two, I was about $50,000 in debt on my personal credit card just to support the business needs, whether it's tires, whether it's engine work, whether it is driver recruiting. It's just a lot of expenses that I wasn't really aware of when I got into the business, but I had to make do. In August of 2010 is when I was able to buy my first brand new truck. And a conventional bank by the name of GE Capital gave me a shot and said that we will finance you on a brand new truck. All you have to do is put 20% down, and we'll be able to finance you for the rest. And then from there, I grew that company from 3 old trucks and 1 brand new trucks to 80 trucks, 160 drivers on the road, 30 office employee doing over $20 million in revenue.
And it's an amazing story. So starting bootstrap on your own for 2 years, sitting at that desk 15 hours a day, doing every single thing possible in order to cut costs, make sure your drivers are safe, make sure you're taking care of business. I mean, how do you prepare yourself to work that much on your own business?
I think it goes down to discipline and consistency. You just have to wake up every day, do the same task. Although the task may be very daunting, you just can't give up. There is a side of some personal life that you have to really balance with starting a new business. I was not able to make that balance. So what I had to do in order for me to have some sort of a personal life, even when I traveled, I would be on call. I would take my laptop with me. I still remember to this day, there's a trip that I took with my friends over to Washington, D.C., and we were using the public transportation system. And as I was using the public transportation system, I had my laptop open with an air card, and I had my phone on my ear, taking calls and doing payroll while I'm in the transportation or in the public transportation, going from one place to another. So that's kind of what the discipline that I've learned over the years that I have to incorporate in order to have a personal balance between life and work.
So from 0 to 20 million, it took you how many years to do that?
Total of 12 years.
So 0 to 20 million in 10 years. Most people would have gave up along the way, right? They just throw in the towel and maybe go back to electrical engineering or some safe route. But here it was a business that you enjoyed. You were helping people, connecting them to opportunity. And in terms of your big takeaway from going from 0 to 20 million, what are your top 3 pieces of advice that people can benefit from?
It's very important that you along the way you got to be able to provide value. You have to be able to provide value to your service providers, your employees, as well as your drivers. It's not something that you have to look at the financial component of it. Always place the importance of providing value to others before they provide value to you. And if you're able to do that, I think the financial reward will be just the byproduct of that. So that's one. The other thing is consistency. You have to be consistent with what you do. You have to love what you do. And you have to set a very, very specific schedule on how you handle your tasks every day and manage your time properly. Managing your time is vital. Time is one of our most important assets that we could never get back. So if you manage your time properly and you're able to delegate a lot of the work over to your employees. So you're no longer wearing all hats, which what I had to do when I first started will help you scale your business. So just to kind of summarize is put people values before yours, delegate the work, and manage your time.
So let's talk about managing your time, because the first 2 years of putting your time into this business, 15 hours a day on call 24/7, but 15 hours a day at your desk.
Yeah.
How were you able to find a balance for the other parts of your life that were important to you, or were you just not focused on that at all?
I was off the radar, Derek. I was locked up in my office. My marriage was very young, and I had an amazing supportive wife during the time. She would, as I was sitting at my desk, I would not even go downstairs to the kitchen to have a bite to eat. She would actually bring my food over to the office just so I can continue with my momentum and stay focused on the task. So I think the support of my wife during the startup of my business was a huge piece and a huge component to my success.
That's amazing. And the support system is the most important thing. And at what point were you able to think about what the next chapter of your life would be after you moved on from the logistics? You sold your practice, right?
Yeah, in 2020, we've exited logistics, but interestingly, in 2017, and that will answer your question about how I got involved in family entertainment. In 2017, I was visiting my sister in Indianapolis, Indiana, where she lives, and my kids and her kids wanted something to do. So we were looking at some family entertainment venues in the area, and we came across a brand by the name of Urban Air Adventure Parks in Franklin, Indiana, which was about an hour away from where she lives. We got into the car, we drove an hour. We went to Urban Air Adventure Parks in Franklin, and I was just blown away by the concept. I just loved the concept. What I loved most about the concept is my kids were at that park for hours. Traditionally, when you go into an indoor family entertainment center or a trampoline park in Michigan, you would just, the only thing that you can really do is jump on trampolines with a very, very small concession stand to be able to get candy or to be able to get drinks. But on the contrary, with Urban Air, my kids were there for hours because of the different attractions that Urban Air provides.
Mm-hmm.
So I took that into account when I came back to Michigan, and I said, you know what, this concept is needed here in Michigan. The diversity that I saw at Urban Air is something that Michigan would highly benefit from. As a result of that, I reached out to the franchisor. It is a Texas-based franchise. I flew out to Texas. I met with the CEO, whose name is Michael Browning.
So you just got on a plane and flew to Texas. This is the next thing I want to do. So you really get after it when you get an idea in your head.
When I get an idea in my head and I think that there is merit to it, I definitely pursue it. I don't just kind of set it in the backseat and get on with life, because there was merit to it. I really liked what I saw there. So got on a plane. I had an appointment with the CEO, Michael Browning. I went, and he was operating out of a hangar at the time. So it's not what Urban Air is today, or today it's under the Unleashed brands right now by doing multiple acquisitions in the family entertainment area. But he was operating only Urban Air. He had about 12 employees. He was operating out of a hangar in Grapevine, Texas. But I was so impressed with his vision. He had just an unbelievable vision. I wanted to be part of that vision. So I decided that I'm going to move forward with this opportunity and bring it to Michigan. But because of my involvement in logistics, I needed a partner that would really help me in the day-to-day operations, because there's no way I was able to balance between the family entertainment park that will require a lot of tender loving care at the beginning, and be involved in my transportation and logistics business. Therefore, I reached out to one of my best friends. I asked him if this is something that he would be interested in. He said he likes the industry, but he's involved in the cell phone business at the time. So I said, well, why don't we get into a car and go to the nearest park to Michigan? And the nearest park to Michigan happened to be in Pennsylvania. We went to a park in Pennsylvania that was going through their grand opening, And he was just blown away by the amount of people, the attractions that were in the park. We came back to Michigan with our families and we said, you know what, we're going to go ahead and push forward and get this done. October of 2019, we've opened our doors in Sterling Heights.
I'm gonna pause right there, Mark. This is not live, so pause right there. We're getting some back feed in the earpiece, the headset. Thank you. I think it's that one.
It's that headset.
Yeah, that's okay. So the good thing about not going live is he can edit it out and we can start over.
Great.
So that was Mark. Hold on for 1 second. We'll transition from the opening of the air park into what you're doing now in commercial real estate.
Perfect.
Is that cool?
That's perfect.
Mark, are you ready? Rolling? Okay. So you launched the first air park, and then after that, you get an idea about commercial real estate. Tell me about that.
So commercial real estate, specifically real estate, let's talk about real estate in general, goes back to 2012. I opened my park in 2019, but real estate was always a parallel path to whatever I was doing in business.
Mm-hmm.
There was always some sort of a real estate investment or a real estate acquisition that I would make along the way. And the reason for that is I'm a firm believer that anybody who wants to be involved in real estate should always be cash poor and asset rich. So what I would do is I would take any excess cash flow that comes from my business, whether it's the transportation and logistics company or my urban air after it was opened, and I would deploy that into real estate. I would not go out there and buy flamboyant cars or boats or take some lavish vacations. I was always a firm believer that any excess cash flow, let's go ahead and deploy it into real estate. So in 2012, I bought a house in Shelby Township. The house was incomplete in terms of construction. It was a very, very large home. It was 10,000 square feet, but it was a deal that I just could not pass on. So my wife and I ended up buying that house. We lived in that house, and then we completed the construction of the remaining square footage of the house that was not complete when we bought it. We did tons of work to the outside. We did a lot of work to the entrances and the driveways of the house. And we realized after the house was completed that this house is way too big for our family needs. I only had a newborn at the time, and it was me and my wife. What are we doing living in a 10,000 square foot? But what we took advantage of is the arbitrage of the real estate market and how it was growing at the time. We bought the house in 2012. 2014, we decided to put the house on the market. Within 60 days, we got an offer from a widowed lady that was looking to move into the neighborhood. And we sold that house. We were featured in the Detroit Free Press under an article called House Envy. It was one of the nicest homes in Shelby Township at the time, and it was recorded as one of the highest sales in Shelby Township at the time. So what's interesting is some of the prices that homes were selling for were about 30 to 40% less than what we sold our house for. So the sale and the comp that we brought to Shelby Township has set the tone for the years to come with the residential real estate in Shelby Township.
So one property in residential real estate, and then how do you transition into commercial?
Very excellent question. As we had about 60 days to move out of our house. So we started looking at houses in the area. We could not find anything we like. We started looking at some other neighborhoods and some other cities, and we could not find anything we like. What we found is we found a condominium complex in Sterling Heights that was new construction. And we said, instead of renting because we can't find what we like, why don't we buy a condo and live in that condo just as a transition piece between what our next step would be. We ended up moving into that condo. And I remember to this day, my wife and I, we were standing at our bedroom window. And as we were standing in our bedroom window, some of the other buildings in that condominium complex was being built. We were sitting on some cash from the sale of our Shelby Township home. And I looked at my wife and I'm like, well, there's two buildings that are coming up. Why don't we go ahead and buy those two buildings? We can live in one of the condos and we can rent out the rest as we were living in the community. And that's what we did. We ended up buying 9 other condos beside the first condo that we bought and lived in, rented them all out. And to this day, we still own all of those 10 condos. So that was kind of a piece of real estate that we've owned and operated that gave us some sort of a residential real estate portfolio.
But you didn't know anything about it. You just kind of dove in. Seems like every time an idea gets into your head, you dive in full bore and you attack it and you learn about it, and then you make a intelligent decision afterwards.
That's what really took place over the years, Derek.
Yeah. What are some of the greatest challenges that you had to overcome in order to think about adding these unique ideas to your portfolio?
The challenges that I had to come is being able to balance between my day-to-day businesses and being always on the lookout for what we're going to do in real estate next. It's just finding time to be able to do that. So goes back to really what is the solution to that challenge is time management. How can you delegate the work to be able to cover more grounds in your day-to-day?
So how have you added people to your team that help you do that on a day-to-day, or is it you can't make more hours in the day, right?
You can't make more hours in the day, so you have to add people to help you out. And I was in a very, very fortunate spot. My transportation and logistics company was growing. I was adding employees. I had to be at the office almost on a daily basis, but my employees really took a lot of the heavy lifting off of my back, which really freed up my time to be able to scout for what the next real estate opportunity would be.
And you started to focus on that mostly in 2020 as you exited logistics?
Before I exited logistics, I did buy one commercial real estate in Madison Heights, Michigan, which was a light industrial building that we converted into an office. We did a full-blown construction on it. We bought it in 2018. We were done with it around 2019, and that was kind of the debut of entering into the commercial real estate world.
And yeah, continue.
And we've taken basically a warehouse, a light industrial warehouse on Stevenson Highway across from the Costco, and we converted it into a state-of-the-art office space that we were using for our transportation and logistics company. So we were our own tenant. We had an LLC that owned the property, and our transportation company would just pay rent to that LLC.
And what's the vision now that you have for Batal Real Estate?
It is, my vision is to be able to continue growing a real estate portfolio. However, it is not possible because of the tolerance threshold that I've built from 2018 after I got involved in commercial real estate. The deal sizes right now are too large for me to be able to self-fund. So as a result of that, I formed Batal Real Estate to be able to go out to market, syndicate real estate deals, and be able to raise capital so we can fuel the deal flow that we have in front of us.
And in terms of the asset classes that you're focused on, it's office, industrial. Give me a snapshot.
So what we're currently right now focused on is triple net leases and multifamily. Triple net leases can be in the form of medical offices or retail shopping centers. And multifamily, we're either looking at a value-add multifamily complex or a ground-up development.
And what are some of the biggest challenges that you see in your space today as you look over to the next 24 months?
There's some challenges in existing inventory, and there's challenges also in new construction. In existing inventory, where I see the challenges is the lack of inventory that's available in the marketplace, and the cost of capital has created a big challenge. The cap rates right now have not really caught up to the interest rate that's out there in the marketplace, and lenders have became more conservative with how they're lending money on property. We're seeing much larger down payments right now on a real estate acquisition. We're seeing higher interest rates. The interest rates have been hiking month over month. Right now, they're somewhat stable, but we've seen a huge hike in the last 6 to 7 months, and cap rates have not really caught up to that hike. So the challenges are definitely cost of capital, terms of what the lenders are looking for in terms of down payments and lack of inventory.
So as it relates to this new chapter in your life that you've been focused on, it seems like you have um, interest in seeking out mentors and leaders in different companies that have helped you build relationships to get where you're at today. How do you cultivate relationships with people that are important to you in commercial real estate?
I think that being involved in summits and conferences will definitely create those relationships and introductions. I've been a real estate investor myself only for 11 years. There are mentors out there that have been doing it longer than I have. I would love to be able to share knowledge with them. I would love to be able to share deal flow with them, seek advice on current transactions that we have under contract or LOIs out there, letter of intents that we have out there that are soon to get under contract, to see what their opinion is and what are the challenges that they face with similar deals.
So do you just pick up the phone and call somebody and say, hey, I know that you've been successful in your industry or in this space. Can you give me a few minutes of your time? Give me an idea for how you approach someone that could be a potential mentor for you.
So really, it's based on existing relationships. I have not to date called somebody on a cold call and asked for mentorship. Some of the avenues that I've used that have been very, very successful for me is maybe a former landlord that we've bought one of his properties, and he has a very large real estate portfolio. I kept in contact after that transaction have closed, asked for mentorship, asked for guidance on some of the transactions, and it's just unbelievable how much people are willing to help if you are willing to seek out and reach out to them for help.
So it's as simple as that. It's as simple as seeking advice from people that you've already cultivated relationships with. That's how you've been able to gain insight and knowledge from people that have already been successful.
Absolutely. And what your service providers can also provide the same value. So one of my property managers that we've used have been a tremendous value on creating and making new introductions and syndicators and real estate investors within the space. And it's just amazing that people are willing to help and willing to go the extra mile as long as you go and ask. Ask for help. The help is out there, but you just got to be willing to be able to ask for that help and seek advice from others.
You almost humble yourself to ask people for support and mentorship along the way. That's an important part. Yeah. Who's been your greatest mentor in your career?
Would you like me to mention a name?
I'll leave it up to you.
Okay. So one of my biggest mentors, and I'd love to mention a name and give him a shout out. I think that he has been extremely valuable in building my knowledge in real estate, is an individual by the name of Greg Ernie from Versa. Greg has been a huge asset in my knowledge of really looking outside of the box when it comes to evaluating a real estate deal and what trigger points to look at during my due diligence process on things that he brought to me that I would just not think of. A great example to that is I was looking at a Kroger deal that wasn't really penciling in very well because of the net operating income in terms of the price and the cap rate. Well, what Greg has brought to my attention is he said, well, next to this Kroger, there is a vacant land. Why don't you inquire about that vacant land and see if that vacant land is for sale? And if it is for sale, why don't you think about putting a Kroger gas station that would bring a tremendous amount of value add to the deal, where the deal would pencil in a lot better? So this is a very unorthodox way of looking at real estate. And it doesn't just come with 1 or 2 or 3 years of experience. I just think that it only comes with the amount of transactions that you have on your belt and how many have you done. And has been a tremendous asset to provide that type of support to me.
So you have blind spots in any business that you get involved in, and what you've done is sought out leadership and mentorship from experts around you. and they provide some insight to help you make a decision based. Did you ever do that deal?
We did not do that deal, but I just gave you an example of how you can look at a real estate transaction in an unorthodox way. We just could not come to a price term agreement with the broker at the time. But some of these items is very valuable to be able to look at a deal and revive a deal from being dead to a deal that's actually live,
Or a deal that you should walk away from,
or a
which
deal that you
happens,
should walk away
which
from.
happens. So he was able to condense some time frames for you. Another passion of yours, just I know this just because we're friends, is the interest that you have in taking care of your mind and body, and talk about how leveraging your interest in health and wellness has helped you to become the entrepreneur you are today.
Yeah, I would love to cover that, and I think that the best way to talk about it is just to give a little bit of background about health and wellness and the impact that health and wellness has had on my life. I've been in health and wellness for at least 20, 22 years, but I've never took it to a competitive place. During COVID, when my business was shut down, I just had a lot of time on my hand. My business was shut down. We were not real estate was just at a halt. No deals were being done. The banks just weren't lending out any money. So the way I describe it is life has stopped for a year. So during that year, what I can focus on, since my business is closed down, there's really no real estate transactions that are happening, is let me focus on what I have a passion for on the personal side, which is my fitness and my wellness. And I decided to hire a private coach to really coach me on taking my hobby to the next level where I can compete as a bodybuilder. And it took me about a year and a half. I did the first competition in April of 2021. And I took some time off after that competition. And then I recompeted again in 2022. I had 3 shows in 2022. They were all back-to-back shows in the third quarter of the year. And then on my third show, which was on November the 5th, 2022, I turned from an amateur to being a pro bodybuilder. And if I reflect on how my journey was and what I did to be able to take my fitness to the next level and become a pro, it goes back to the fundamentals of what you want to do in business to be successful is discipline, consistency, and grit. You got to have all those 3 components. And if you have those 3 components and you exercise discipline, you exercise grit, and you exercise consistency in everything that you do, you will be successful at it.
So it's a great story to share, but you kind of just moved into the next part of my question, which was what advice do you have for people that want to aspire to be in your position with the well-balanced business career, health and wellness, family? And it sounds like you've broken it down into discipline, consistency, and grit. Can you maybe share some advice to your younger self? Maybe that would be helpful to us as well.
You take those 3 attributes and find them in people that you surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with people that have discipline, consistency, and grit, these are the people that you want to be friends with because they're going to have nothing but positive impact on your life. They are going to provide so much value to what you're doing in business or what you're doing on your personal side as a hobby to take it to the next level. Surround yourself with people that have consistency, discipline, and grit, and you will just feed off of their positive energy.
Any final closing thoughts? I love that that reminder to surround, not only to implement those attributes, but to seek them out in others. I think that that's an important component, which also makes life a little bit better, right? You're surrounding yourself with positive energy and people that can add value to you, and you can add value to them. Any closing thoughts as we move on?
My closing thoughts are I really want to thank you for being here today. I want to thank you for allowing me to share my story with all the listeners. And my story, although has a positive outcome, but during my journey, it wasn't all positive. I went through so many peaks and valleys. I went through so many failures. And I am not smarter than the person that is next to me. I just failed more than the person that next to me. and learned from my failures, and my failures is what created my experience. Therefore, don't be shy to fail. Everybody fails. Be willing to get up, put your hands up, and start boxing again, because it is we are the result of our past failures, and learning from our failures is who makes us who we are today.
That's an incredible journey, man. I congratulate you on your successes, personally, professionally, and there's a long runway ahead for both of us over the next 40 years. So I'm sure we have a lot more to collaborate on. Appreciate the conversation and story with my dear friend, Amer Batal, principal at Batal Real Estate, from an electrical engineer, entrepreneur, professional bodybuilder, and just a well-balanced friend, and somebody that I think we can learn a lot from today. So appreciate having him on as a guest today at the Power Connector podcast, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you.